Hey, what's up guys, Adam here, and in this video I'm going to be talking about two financial books that completely changed my life. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. So the first book that I'm going to be talking about is Dave Ramsey's Complete Guide to Money. Now if you watched my last video, I'll leave it in the info card above. I talked about Dave Ramsey's 7 steps to financial freedom, and this book goes into a lot of depth regarding those individual steps. Now this book is also dubbed as the handbook for the Financial Peace University, and Financial Peace University is a course that Dave Ramsey runs. He mainly goes into more detail talking about these 7 steps, and he also hooks you up with the various different mentors and smart investor pros during that course. So the book starts off almost like an autobiography. He talks a lot about his life growing up in South America, he talks a lot about his family, and he talks about how he actually got onto the real estate market as a young investor. However, the problem that Dave actually ran into was that he was lending far too much against the properties that he owned, and then unfortunately the housing bubble burst. When the banks came to then try and reclaim their debt from him, he was completely bankrupt. And it was that change from having completely everything to almost nothing that encouraged him to come up with these 7 steps to get out of debt and into financial freedom that propelled him to get back on his feet. So one of the key points that he actually brings up during these 7 steps is the dichotomy between the free spirits and the nerds. Now the nerds are those that tend to have a complicated budget sheet. They tend to be really down to the letter. They want to know where every amount of their money goes, whereas the free spirits tend to just spend and spend and spend without any sort of budget in mind, and is usually referring to married couples or young couples where one person tends to be really down with the budget and the other person just tends to spend or doesn't really care about budgeting. And he really works to try and bring these two people together to come to some sort of manageable agreement. Now, of course, he talks about the importance of investing. If you watched my last video, you know that when we get to the investing step, that is baby step 4, where we invest 15% into our retirement fund. Now, he talks about the importance of investing mainly against inflation, because, for example, if you just simply put money into a bank account, especially with how the rates are now, which is almost like 0.5 to nothing, you'll realize that inflation rate is normally at around 2%. So if you're just simply piling money into a savings account with a low interest rate, you're not even actually standing still. You're technically going backwards and your money is losing value. So he tends to really stress the importance of investing from a young age and to make regular payments into your investment fund or your retirement fund to make sure it is growing in the background. He also talks a lot about negotiation tactics and just shows you how powerful cash is rather than just trying to pay with financing, giving you that buying power to negotiate an item down to a price that you are happy to pay. Dave is a Christian, so you're going to see a lot of biblical references made throughout the book, so you'll see not only his financial journey, but his spiritual journey as well, and both of which will carry you to baby step number 7, which is where Dave really wants you to get to so you can give like no one else. Now this book was really beneficial to me because it was one of the first books that I read when it came to speaking on investing. It also really helped me to understand the importance of being able to set a budget as well as measurable goals. So the Complete Guide to Money from Dave Ramsey is definitely a book that I would recommend that you read, and also recommend that you check out his YouTube channel as well, because there's some really good and important information on there that you will find really useful. So the second financial book that completely changed my life was Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Now this book is really interesting. I mean, it's going to be one of those books that when you pick it up, you're not going to be able to put it down. It's also got a few layers of controversy in there, but it is probably the most popular book when it comes to financial freedom, and it was written over 20 years ago, yet it still holds the test of time today. So the book is about the lives of Robert's 2 dads, and you're probably thinking, well, what does that mean, Robert's 2 dads? But I'll explain in a second. So the way it works is that Robert has his own biological dad, who is actually a top government official in Hawaii. That's where Robert grew up. He grew up in Hawaii, and that's what he calls his poor dad. And then you have his best friend Mike's dad. So Mike's dad owns several businesses in Hawaii, very well known over there, and is very successful. And that is what Robert calls his rich dad. Now on paper, you're probably thinking, well, hold on, you have a high-ranking government official job here, which is Robert's biological dad, and then you have Mike's dad, which is really well off as well and has, several businesses. So they both don't really seem like they're poor on paper, but as you'll see, the book isn't actually referring to how much money they make. It is their attitude to money, their attitude to investing, and what Robert calls their financial IQ. Now both Robert and Rich Dad, which is Mike's dad, both believe in the idea that the rich don't work for money. It probably sounds like a very strange statement because you think that, rich people would generally work hard for their money. But what he's actually saying is the rich don't trade hours and their time for, say, a fixed salary or fixed income or even a fluctuating income. What they do is they build a system in place, whether it be automated or a physical workforce, and they use that then to generate their income. Whilst Robert and Rich Dad both have the argument that the poor, instead of building a system to generate their money, they actually themselves tend to work harder to try and generate more money. And that is the difference that the book is trying to showcase by saying that the rich don't work for money, they build a system to create their wealth, whereas the poor try to simply just work harder to increase their own wealth. Now, in the book, Rich Dad tells Robert at a very young age the importance between an asset and a liability. And what he basically boils it down to, he says, well, the rich own assets while the poor own liabilities. And for example, so the rich would have, real estate, they'd have businesses, and all of that in its own bubble generates them an income and is a physical asset, while the poor, or even in some cases the middle class, will have liabilities. So they'll have things like cars or high interest loans or debts, which takes money out of their pocket. So an asset will put money into your pocket, whereas a liability will take money out of your pocket. And that is how, again, the book uses that example to say, well, this is how the rich stay rich, by creating assets that then generate them an income, while the poor will go out and buy all these fancy things to try and look like they're rich, but it's actually becoming a liability because it's taking money out of their income. And one of the more hard-hitting truths that I came across when reading this book is that Robert claims, as well as Rich Dad, they both claim that your home is not an asset. Now, I always grew up thinking that, well, the biggest asset that most people tend to own is their own home. But when you really think about it, using the example that I just mentioned, your home, whilst you pay the mortgage, is actually a liability because the mortgage is taking money out of your asset column or out of your income rather than actually generating you any income. It only becomes an asset, which sounds a bit morbid. That actually only becomes an asset when you're passing it down to your children or grandchildren when you're no longer around, because obviously the house is then paid for. Only then will it become an asset, but you wouldn't be actually there to claim the benefit of the asset. So whilst you're living in your home, it is technically, until it's paid off for, a liability. But in the grand scheme of things, the largest asset that most people would actually end up owning would be their own home. So definitely an interesting concept there, and it really had me doing a lot of thinking whilst I was reading that aspect of the book. So I would say the first part of the book is almost reteaching us how money works. So the second part of the book is pretty much designated to walking us through Robert's life growing up. We definitely see more mentorship between him and Rich Dad. We also see some of the faults that were made by Poor Dad, and you can also see how he's pretty much against the idea of investing. He believes in the idea of a secure job, which Rich Dad pretty much is against. Rich Dad believes there's no such thing as having a secure job, which again is another hard pill to swallow, because you always think, well, you go to school, you go to university, you get a secure, a long-time job. Well, what Rich Dad was really saying is that no job is really secure. And in the real world, I mean, that's completely true. I mean, look at the pandemic that we're in now. No job is really secure. So it's always good. And what Rich Dad actually teaches in the book is to have several streams of income. Something that Robert preaches day by day is to make sure you just don't rely on a single employer to provide you with an income. Make sure you've got backups. Make sure you have assets to produce an income also. So Robert didn't just take the mentorship and the ideas from Rich Dad and try and build a company. He actually spent a lot of time in the workforce. He spent a good amount of years working for Xerox, the large printing company in the US. He also became an Air Force pilot, and it was only after that point he actually started to look towards more of the business side of things. He started in the real estate market, and from that point he was able to then start to build up his brand from there, where we come today now, which is the Rich Dad channel, as well as all the books that he currently has out now and all the financial information that he's able to give over his YouTube channel. He's also got several courses, guides, tips, really just to get you to understand how money works and how to be more efficient with your time and make sure that you have assets generating you an income rather than a long list of liabilities. So Rich Dad Poor Dad is definitely a great read. Now for me, it was almost like a complete paradigm shift compared to what I thought I knew about money versus what I do know now. From reading that book alone, I was able to learn so much more and raise my financial IQ, to quote the book. But it's just a fantastic book just to sit down, read, unpack, unpin, and really understand how money works and how it really works in the grand scheme of things. So The Complete Guide to Money and Rich Dad Poor Dad are two financial books that have completely changed my life. I'll leave the link to both those books in the description down below. Now, they're two very different books. I'd say that The Complete Guide to Money is a lot more practical in the sense of it tells you, you should be investing, how to write a budget, the importance of setting goals. Whereas I say Rich Dad Poor Dad is more of a mindset and paradigm change. It really works more on the mind and how to almost re-educate yourself when it comes to understanding how money works and how financials work. So these two books are very different, but they are both an incredible read and will get you to do a lot of thinking and really, really get you to that point of being able to say you're financially free. So I definitely could have put a lot more books on this list, but these have been my top two that have really, really changed my life when it comes to financials. Now, if you want to see me do more book overviews, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below. And if you want to see more videos based on personal finance, investing, business, videography, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you're notified when we drop a new video. And if you like this video, you know what to do. Hit the thumbs up button down below. So anyway, guys, it's been Adam here. Thank you for watching. Take care. And of course, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.